I want you to imagine that tomorrow morning you wake up and your financial life is no longer normal. Maybe one investment did something you did not expect. Maybe a small business or side project you started suddenly broke through. Maybe an inheritance came in. Maybe in the strangest and least probable version, you won a lottery prize so large that the number did not feel real when you first saw it. Most people think this is the dream. They think the problem ends when the money arrives. I have learned that this is almost never true. Money does not solve a person's problems as cleanly as people imagine. Sudden money magnifies the person, it magnifies habits, it magnifies weak relationships, it magnifies poor judgment, it magnifies the hidden desires that were already inside the system, but too small to be dangerous before the money arrived. That is why people who get rich very quickly often lose far more than money. They lose privacy, they lose trust, they lose friends, they lose family stability, they lose the quiet, ordinary life they did not know was protecting them. Some fall into addiction, some fall into divorce, some fall into lawsuits, some fall into bad investments, some simply become bored, careless, and emotionally unanchored because they never built the internal system required to handle external wealth. This is why the first rule of sudden wealth is not to buy anything. It is not to celebrate publicly. It is not to prove anything to anyone. The first move is silence. When wealth arrives suddenly, the most dangerous sound you can make is an announcement. I know this feels unnatural. The human impulse is to share good news. You want your family to know, you want your friends to know, you want the people who doubted you to see that you were right. You want the emotional reward that comes from being seen. That impulse is exactly what can destroy you. There is a reason people use the phrase stealth wealth. It means you have money, but you do not let the world organize itself around your money. You do not turn your life into a public signal. You do not become a walking invitation for claims, resentment, manipulation, requests, schemes, lawsuits, and emotional pressure. The most important asset after sudden wealth is not the money itself. It is optionality. Optionality requires privacy. Once everyone knows, your options narrow. People begin making decisions around you before you have made decisions for yourself. One of the clearest examples is Jack Whitaker, who won $14.9 million from the Powerball in 2002. At the time, it was one of the largest jackpots ever won by a single ticket. He did what many people think a generous person should do. He told people, he gave money away, he helped strangers, he gave to churches, he bought friends' cars and houses on the surface. That looks kind, but systems do not care how kind your intentions are. If you create a system where everyone around you learns that asking produces money, you have created an extraction machine. Whitaker's life unraveled in ways that no amount of money could repair. His marriage ended, friendships broke. The money distorted the relationships around him. His granddaughter, whom he had spoiled with money, tragically died from an overdose. He later said that being too generous in the wrong way had destroyed both his fortune and his family. That story is not about one man being foolish. It is about what happens when a person receives wealth without first building boundaries. Money attracts claims. Some claims are legal, some are emotional, some are moral. Some are imaginary, but they all feel real to the people making them. Once someone believes your money can solve their pain, they often stop seeing your money as yours. This is why I would tell almost no one, not because I dislike people, not because I believe everyone is bad, because I understand incentives. When incentives change, relationships change, sometimes they change slowly, sometimes they change overnight. People say money changes people. I think that is only partly true. Money often reveals people. It reveals how they handle envy. It reveals whether they respect boundaries. It reveals whether love can exist without access. It reveals whether generosity is appreciated or converted into entitlement. So the first person I would speak to is not a friend, not a cousin, not a colleague, and not someone who promises to keep a secret. It is a competent attorney who specializes in trusts and estate planning. That is where the adult process begins. When wealth arrives, you need structure before emotion. A good trust and estate attorney can help you build a legal container around the money. They can help protect privacy. They can help reduce unnecessary tax leakage. They can help keep assets from moving through your life without a plan. Most people want to decide what car to buy. The wiser move is to decide what legal structure owns what, who can see what, who controls what, and what happens if you die, divorce, or sued, become incapacitated, or are pressured by people you care about. This is not the exciting part. That is why it matters. Good financial systems are usually boring before they become powerful. The next mistake people make is quitting life, not just quitting a job. A lot of people say you should never quit your job after getting rich. I think the better way to say it is this: do not quit usefulness. If your job is making you miserable, if it drains you, if you no longer need the money and the work gives you no meaning, then leaving that job can be rational. But quitting work entirely is often dangerous. A person who suddenly has money and no purpose becomes vulnerable to bad decisions. Without structure, the mind begins searching for stimulation. Stimulation is expensive. A person gets bored, so they start spending. Then spending is not enough, so they start showing off. Then showing off attracts the wrong people. Then the wrong people bring bad deals. Then bad deals become losses. Some people start businesses they know nothing about because they are bored and now have the capital to act on every impulse. They buy restaurants, they buy clubs, they invest in a friend's idea, they buy into industries they have never studied. They confuse having capital with having competence. Those are not the same thing. Capital gives you the right to participate. Competence gives you the right to survive. If you suddenly become rich, keep your life normal for a period of time. 6 months is not too long. During that time, do not make identity decisions, do not buy the mansion, do not redesign your whole life, do not create a public story about who you have become. Let the emotional wave pass. Let the nervous system adjust. Let the people around you continue to see normal patterns. The goal is to create a pause between money arriving and behavior changing. That pause can save you. In that pause, look at debt. Debt is one of the first places sudden wealth should create order. Many people think, I am rich now, so a few debts do not matter. That is a dangerous thought because debt is not just a number. Debt is a claim on your future cash flow. Debt creates fragility. Debt reduces your range of motion. Debt is especially dangerous when it carries high interest. Credit cards are the obvious place to begin. If you have debt carrying 20%, 25%, or 30% interest, paying it off is not glamorous, but it is one of the cleanest financial returns available. It is like earning that interest rate without market risk. Car loans and personal loans should be examined the same way. If the rate is high, the debt is a leak, close the leak. Mortgages are different. This is where many people make a decision emotionally instead of analytically. They want the feeling of owning the house free and clear. That feeling can be valuable. Peace has value, but if the mortgage rate is very low, maybe 2% or 3%, paying it off immediately may not be the best use of capital. The question is not, do I hate debt? The better question is, what is the cost of this debt compared with the productive use of the money? If you can reasonably earn more elsewhere while maintaining safety and liquidity, the low-rate mortgage may not be your first target. If the debt gives you emotional stress, or if your life needs simplicity more than optimization, maybe paying it off is the right choice. But the principle is clear. High-interest debt is a fire. Low-interest debt is a tool. Do not treat them the same. Once high-interest debt is gone, make a rule that you do not return to that system. Sudden wealth should not finance old habits. It should end the cycle that made old habits expensive. The next problem is harder because it involves people you love. When you suddenly have money, family and friends often begin to feel that some part of it belongs to them. Sometimes they do not say this directly. Sometimes it appears as a loan request. Sometimes it appears as an emergency. Sometimes it appears as a business idea. Sometimes it appears as guilt. The emotional logic is usually simple. You have so much now, I need help. Why would you say no? This is where many wealthy people destroy relationships by trying to preserve them. They lend money. The borrower says they will pay it back, then they do not. Now the relationship contains a debt, a story, a resentment, and a power imbalance. If you ask for repayment, you look greedy. If you forgive the debt, you train the person to ask again. If you say no next time, they feel betrayed because you said yes before. This is why lending money to friends and family is often one of the fastest ways to lose both the money and the relationship. A cleaner principle is this: if you decide to help, make it a gift, not a loan. Give only what you are comfortable never seeing again, and attach a boundary. The boundary is not cruel. The boundary is what makes the gift clean. You might say, I can help this one time, and I am not expecting repayment. But I am also not becoming your emergency fund. That line will feel uncomfortable if you are not used to boundaries. But discomfort now prevents damage later. Generosity without structure becomes dependency. Dependency becomes entitlement. Entitlement becomes resentment. And resentment destroys relationships faster than honesty ever will. Sometimes being kind requires saying no early before the situation becomes humiliating for everyone. The biggest structural mistake after sudden wealth is that people spend the principal. They look at the account balance and think the balance is the money they can use. That is not how lasting wealth works. If you want wealth to last, you need to see the principal as a productive asset, not a pile of chips. The principal is the tree. The income is the fruit. If you cut down the tree to enjoy firewood, you may feel warm for a while, but the system stops producing. This is how lottery fortunes disappear. It is how inheritances vanish. It is how business exits become regret stories. People buy the house, the cars, the private school, the vacations, the renovations, the status objects, and the lifestyle. Then the fixed costs rise, then the taxes arrive, then the maintenance costs arrive, then the investment losses arrive. Then the money that looked impossibly large becomes fragile. A family in the source story won a large sum and immediately upgraded life. They bought a home worth over $10 million, sports cars, and private school for the children within 2 years. The structure broke, the cars were sold, the child was pulled from private school, and the house was listed at a painful discount after bad improvements and debt pressure forced the issue. The money was not too small. The system was wrong. This is the principle I would use. Never build a lifestyle on principle. Build the lifestyle on sustainable income. That is where the freedom figure comes in. The freedom figure is the amount of invested capital required to support the life you want without destroying the capital base. A simple way to think about it is this. Estimate the annual income you need, then multiply it by 25. If you need $200,000 a year, the rough capital target is $5 million. That is based on the idea of withdrawing about 4% per year. I would not treat that as a guarantee. Markets change, inflation changes, taxes change, spending changes, your health changes, your family obligations change, but it is a useful mental model because it forces the right question. The question is not, how much money do I have? The question is, how much sustainable income can this money produce without destroying itself? That question separates temporary richness from durable wealth. If the capital cannot support the lifestyle is too large. If the lifestyle requires selling productive assets to maintain appearances, you are not wealthy, you are liquidating. A person who understands this begins thinking like a system designer. You need growth, you need stability, you need liquidity, you need some inflation protection, you need to avoid concentration, you need enough fund money to prevent resentment, but not so much that celebration becomes self-sabotage. Suppose someone had $5 million. I am not giving financial advice. And the right allocation depends on age, goals, risk tolerance, taxes, location, and time horizon. But I can walk through the logic of a balanced example. A portion could go into a low-cost total stock market index fund that creates exposure to many companies instead of betting the future on one idea. It gives the portfolio a long-term growth engine. Over long periods, broad equities have historically produced meaningful returns, though not in a straight line and never with certainty. Another portion could go into a broad bond market fund that is not meant to make you rich quickly. It is meant to create stability and income. Bonds can reduce volatility, help during certain market conditions, and provide a different return stream from equities. They are not risk-free. Interest rates matter, credit quality matters, duration matters, but in a balanced system they can serve a purpose. A portion could go into real estate. Real estate gives exposure to physical assets, rents, appreciation, and potential tax advantages depending on how it is owned and managed. Residential real estate can provide appreciation and long-term demand. Commercial real estate can provide cash flow when purchased well. But real estate is not magic. It has vacancies, repairs, debt, tenants, property taxes, insurance, and cycles. Owning property is not the same as owning passive income. If you buy badly, real estate can become a job that loses money. If you buy well and manage well, it can become a productive part of the system. A smaller portion could go into volatile assets such as Bitcoin or Ethereum if they fit the person's risk profile. I would never confuse this with safety. These assets can rise quickly and fall violently. They can be part of a portfolio for asymmetric upside, but they should not be the foundation of the house. If someone allocates to them, the allocation should be small enough that a major drawdown does not destroy the overall system. A portion should remain liquid. Cash or high-interest savings can feel boring. But liquidity is what lets you avoid forced selling. Liquidity gives you time. It lets you handle taxes, emergencies, market declines, family needs, medical events, and opportunities without selling assets at the wrong moment. The mistake many people make is trying to make every dollar work as hard as possible. That sounds efficient, but it often creates fragility. Some money should be lazy because lazy money can be there when aggressive money is under stress. The source example used $5 million and described a possible split across stocks, bonds, residential real estate, commercial real estate, crypto, and high-interest savings, while reserving a portion as fund money. The specific numbers matter less than the principle. The principle is that sudden wealth needs buckets. One bucket for growth, one bucket for stability, one bucket for income, one bucket for liquidity, one bucket for optional upside, one bucket for enjoying life without damaging the machine. Most people do the opposite. They have one account, one emotional balance, and no structure. Then every purchase feels possible because the number is large. But when everything comes from the same pile, you cannot tell whether you are spending fruit or cutting down the tree. A system makes that visible. The fun money bucket is also important. If you tell a person who just became rich that they can never enjoy anything, they will eventually rebel against their own plan. That rebellion can be expensive. So I believe in controlled enjoyment. Set aside an amount that can be spent without guilt and without damaging the productive base. Buy something, travel, help someone, carefully celebrate. Experience the emotional reality that something good happened. But do it inside a boundary. Freedom is not the same as impulse. The purpose of wealth is not to own the most objects. The purpose of wealth is to buy back time, reduce dependence, create choices, and protect the people and causes that matter to you. This is where many suddenly wealthy people misunderstand the game. They think wealth means mansions, cars, luxury watches, private clubs, and public proof. Those things can be enjoyable, but they are not freedom. Freedom is waking up and not having to spend your day doing something you hate to satisfy a financial obligation you created to impress people you do not trust. Freedom is being able to say no. Freedom is being able to wait. Freedom is being able to walk away. Freedom is being able to help without being controlled by the person asking. Freedom is being able to think clearly because you are not desperate. If sudden wealth does not buy that, it has failed. So when I think about becoming rich suddenly, I do not think first about what to buy. I think about what must be protected. Privacy must be protected. The principle must be protected. Relationships must be protected through boundaries. Purpose must be protected through useful work. Liquidity must be protected through reserves. Judgment must be protected by slowing down. A person without a process will be pulled by emotions. They will be pulled by family pressure. They will be pulled by market excitement. They will be pulled by fear of missing out. They will be pulled by status. They will be pulled by boredom. A process is what allows you to stand still while the world starts grabbing at you. If I received a fortune tomorrow, I would not try to become a new person by Friday. I would stay quiet. I would call the attorney. I would build the legal structure. I would review taxes. I would pay off the destructive debts. I would keep working in some useful form. I would avoid lending money to friends and family. I would set a policy for gifts before anyone asked. I would calculate the freedom figure. I would separate principal from income. I would create a diversified system that can survive different environments. I would set aside controlled fund money. Then I would let time pass before making life. Changing decisions, that is the part people underestimate. Time is a risk management tool. If you wait 6 months, many bad ideas die naturally. The person who wanted money for a brilliant business becomes less urgent. The luxury purchase loses emotional heat. The desire to prove something fades. The pressure from relatives reveals who respects boundaries and who does not. The world shows you information you did not have on day one. Most disasters after sudden wealth are not caused by one large mistake. They are caused by a sequence of small, unexamined decisions made under emotional pressure. The sequence begins with telling too many people. Then it moves to spending before planning. Then it moves to rescuing people without boundaries. Then it moves to lifestyle inflation. Then it moves to weak investments. Then it moves to selling assets to maintain appearances. By the time the person realizes the system is broken, the fortune has already been converted into obligations. I would rather have a smaller life supported by durable income than a larger life that depends on eating the principle. That is not a pessimistic way to live. It is a realistic way to stay free. The paradox is that the more quietly you handle wealth, the more power it gives you, the louder you become, the more the wealth starts controlling you. A quiet fortune can compound. A public fortune gets consumed. If sudden wealth comes to you, do not assume the money has solved the problem. Assume the money has created a new system that must be managed. Do not rush to spend. Do not rush to tell. Do not rush to rescue. Do not rush to become someone else. Build the container first, then build the income, then build the life. If you do it in that order, the money can become freedom. If you do it backward, the money can become the most expensive trap you have ever entered. The rich who stay rich are not always the people who make the most dramatic moves. They are often the people who understand the simplest principles and apply them when emotions are high. Stay private, reduce fragility, clear the bad debt, protect the principal, turn capital into income, keep purpose in your life. Give carefully, spend from a system, not from a feeling. And remember what the money is really for. It is not there to make everyone know your name. It is there to give you control over your time, your choices, and the kind of life that does not need applause to be successful.